giant!
What giant?
A giant with arms 6 miles long. She is in terrible danger.
It's zombie takeout.
Rosinante!
Mm.
I will save you, fair maiden.
Come back here. This is a mistake.
Hello, and welcome to episode 538 of Zombie Takeout, the EP movie and cult movie show. I'm John.
And hello, welcome back. I am Scotto.
And without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 2018, The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Self-Insertion, letting creatives feel like they're just as important as they think they are since 1550 BC.
And also brought to you by Jonathan Pryce, the only dude who has played someone from every continent on Earth. From Vietnamese pimp to King Herod to Martin Luther to Pope Francis. You may wake up one day to realize you are being played by Jonathan Pryce.
I don't know if it's every continent. Has he played a polar bear or like a penguin or something yet?
I don't know. Maybe. I'm assuming he has. I mean,
probably.
If the man's played Pope Francis and King Herod and Vietnamese pimp.
Right.
Actually, I don't know if he's played an Australian or not, but you never know. Oh, I think he did in that. Wasn't that his Bond villain character where he was like the rich guy from Australia?
Okay, yeah. He probably has played some Australian at some point or Kiwi.
There you go. All right, so we have the filmmaker who's kind of going through the motions there at the set. Not really sure what the hell he's doing. He's making pretty much the same movie he made as a student, which is really wild to think about. So he's made a film version of Don Quixote as his student film back when he was younger, and got some not just. I mean, he must have had some money as a kid because he was able to go to Spain to make his student film.
He also got into film school, which is not cheap.
That's true. So yeah, he had to have come from money, and it does come off as kind of the spoiled rich kid, grown up a bit more.
But he wasn't making a film about Quixote at the beginning of the film. He was making a commercial.
Oh, was that just a commercial?
Yeah, they were filming a commercial.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense now.
Because I think they were film was about Quixote. The Quixote was referenced in the commercial he's filming later in his career, 10 years later.
Yeah, so he's just kind of going through the motions, not really interested in it. Wow, that kind of makes a little less sense, though, because would they really have indulged him that much to have left the set to have gone off like he did for his walkabout? I mean, if it was a movie and they were trying to figure out what the hell to do, I don't know. They were quite eccentric.
I mentioned to you that this was, possibly Gilliam's least fantastical film after skimming it. And it's actually very fantastical or very fantasy in a very different way, but continue.
Yeah. So they were very eccentric anyway, and they did have money to burn, so they would have gotten some sort of filmmaker to have done this and let him do whatever the fuck he wanted to do anyway. I take that back about that being fantastical, because people do like to waste money on some projects. And he just up and leaves in the middle of the shoot because he realizes he's pretty close to the town where he filmed this. And I'm trying to remember.
He filmed the student film.
Yeah, he filmed the student film there. And I'm trying to remember how long it took him to shoot that student film in the town. Probably not very long.
Yeah, I don't think they said specifically, but it didn't seem long.
Right. He was probably just there for maybe a week or two at most, because how long could you really afford to just live in Spain and shoot film? Film isn't cheap either. So he figures out that, you also get some flashbacks of him making the film and casting it, and it's all very romantic until he actually gets to the town, and of course he pretty much, well, I don't know if you say he ruined everybody's life, but he definitely left a path of
Yeah.
destruction or disruption
Mhm.
wherever he had gone. Um,
And he was still basically doing that in the life he was in now.
yes, yes, I think he was. I don't know if he was more or less aware of it when he got older.
I
I think
don't think he was ever aware of it.
that's true. This is kind of a big moment for him where he realized that what he had done might not have been the best thing. He just took a young girl and told her she could be a star. He took an old man who had just devoted his life to fixing shoes, to become a new character. Pretty much taught him how to act in a way, really. And
when you say young girl, I think they established she was like 15 when she was
she
in
was
student film.
15.
Yeah.
And well, they make the insinuation. Of course, he's like, no, it wasn't like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they make it very clear nothing illegal happened between them.
Right. Not until, of course, they meet up later. um, so he pretty much gets chased out, and things go sideways. He gets involved with an assault and a murder, and just all sorts of crazy things happen in the span of just a few minutes, really. There was a gypsy who he framed. Well, he didn't actually frame, but they accused him of being a thief when it was really him in the boss's wife's hotel room. And all he had to do was say, I don't know who that guy is. I've never seen him before. And then that would have been the end of it. Oh, guess we'll never know. We'll never get the guy. But instead he said, yeah, that's the man, and pretty much sent him, was going to condemn him to be arrested. Instead, of course, they wind up running into the guy who played Don Quixote in his film, who still believes he's Don Quixote, and causes the police car he's in to crash. And the gypsy that also tries to strangle the driver, and that also, in the middle of the chaos, causes it to crash. There's some shooting. There's some people getting hit with lance, and it just all hell breaks loose. But of course, he's got the blood of a cop on his clothes, so he's trying to lay low and find legal representation until this can blow over, or whatever the hell happens, or if there's enough money to throw at it to make it all go away. He's traveling pretty much as Sancho to this old man who still believes he's Don Quixote, who was really just a shoe guy. It turns out he was kind of a sideshow thing for the town, that he was just, the real donkey, passing himself off as the real Don Quixote that people would go to see. When he goes to visit him, of course, the place he accidentally well, he doesn't start the fire, but a fire starts there, destroying everything that they own, and pretty much a lot of the town too.
Yeah. And just a quick interjection: when you say he's a shoe guy, he was a cobbler. It's not a fetishy thing.
Oh, right, yes, right. Or was it? Now, yes, they're wandering the desert. He believes he's Sancho now, instead of the filmmaker. He doesn't remember him being as a filmmaker. There's talk, of course, the enchanter. They wind up running back into the girl's father, who, of course, when he had ran into them originally, that was the first person he went to meet, because they spent a lot of time in his tavern. That's where he met the girl in the first place. But he accused him of turning her into a whore because she, was bitten by the acting bug and went off on her own, and she's brought shame to the family. Well, they run into him later. He's trying to play Don Quixote himself. and they're trying to keep the sideshow up a little bit. Uh, they say it was trying to lure
The old guy.
Jonathan Pryce,
Javier.
the old guy, back to home by having the whole legend play out.
Hmm.
But I don't know. That's an odd way to do it. He does run into the girl grown up as a woman. She is kind of hiding from somebody. They don't make it clear at first. It turns out she's kind of a kept woman of this Russian billionaire.
Who was bankrolling the commercial that he started in the movie filming.
Bankrolling the commercial and pretty much, bankrolling some other projects too that are down the line of some sort of campaign. And when they discover that there's a man that believes, oh, you know what? I'm skipping one of the wildest parts of the movie, aren't I? He winds up in this closed off, alcove of Muslims.
Yeah.
And he kind of Gilliam plays with us here. That you think that he's going to go the route of the stereotype of terrorists when he hits us with the right hook of the Spanish Inquisition being after them, of course.
Well, that was a dream sequence.
Yes, it turns out to be a dream sequence, but you're not sure it's a dream sequence until
They were I think enclave is the right word you meant. They were an enclave of Muslims. And I don't remember exactly why they were secluded in reality.
Because they were hiding from the Spanish Inquisition, I believe.
No, that was in the dream. That was in the dream that was set during the Spanish Inquisition. I mean, in the modern day of the film.
I think they were, just a close-knit community.
Okay. There was no explanation. Okay. I didn't miss anything then.
Yeah, I don't think there was an actual explanation either, but I assume, there's a lot of xenophobia in Europe.
Yeah, and maybe it started as a way to evade the Inquisition and just developed from there. Who knows?
Yeah. And I think he's drawing the comparison of the Inquisition to modern day racism. But so he where was I? Oh, so then they discover that they have a man who believes he's Don Quixote. The billionaire has his whole court, and he is pretty much living like a king because he's literally living in a castle. He has his whole court read the story so they could all play along and be entertained by them. And it turns out, yes, he's the person that has kept his the girl, who's of course the maiden that needs to be rescued, but they can't really do a good job of it because he's an old man and the other guy is a fuck up who destroys everything that he touches. And so they could have saved her, but of course they kind of fucked that up, and it winds up, hilarity ensues.
No. Now this, of course, is loosely based on the novel Don Quixote by Miguel de Cervantes. Gilliam unsuccessfully tried to make this movie several times over the course of 29 years.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I gotta respect his, commitment, at least. Now, when I said it was, a fantasy in other ways, movies about filmmaking are inherently masturbatory.
Yeah.
But when the main character is a writer-director in a film made by a writer-director, it's just worse. This was clearly Gilliam trying to put himself into Don Quixote. And I love the novel. Got it from a friend back in college, and it's one of my favorites. But the main problem I have is that Toby is an unrepentant asshole who never gets any kind of comeuppance, never really learns a lesson, and ultimately is allowed to think that he is the big damn hero.
Well, in the end, he is Don Quixote.
But rolling back to the beginning,
Yeah.
Did you notice Gilliam in the first scene?
Who was Gilliam playing in the first scene again? Was
Sancho.
he? Oh, he's Sancho.
He was pretty heavily made up, but I'm pretty sure that was Gilliam as Sancho.
Okay, because I thought that was Jack Black, honestly, at first. uh, it's yeah, I think you're right that the lead is an unrepentant asshole, and I think that's how Gilliam views himself. You know,
Maybe.
I think it is, and it's in there literally. It's all about you, isn't it?
Uh-huh.
It's
And
me.
if this had been made in the early 90s, if everything had gone to plan, then I think it would have worked in that time period. It's just that it doesn't work 30 years later.
I'm not sure if how much of a difference that would have made. I mean, it's or how much of the story he changed probably from being older when he did this from that.
I kind of get the feeling he probably didn't change a thing. Like it was the movie he wanted to make in '89 that he just kept pushing and finally got done.
I mean, what I like about this is he didn't really rely too much on effects or anything like that.
No.
You know, in fact, that's kind of the point of it. It was just what perception and really that's what the movie is all about in the end. It is perception. That's why I guess Don Quixote, spoke so strongly to him about somebody imagining things,
Right.
or being oblivious to destruction that you've cast. But in the end, was he really that destructive? I mean, sure, he killed. he got people killed and stuff in this.
I wouldn't even necessarily blame him for the cop.
Well, I mean, that really wasn't his fault.
No, but the death at the end definitely was.
Yeah, and that was because of his senses were failing at that point. He was just. It's kind of his descent into madness, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But really, though,
which is another problem.
The girl got the acting bug and pursued what really excited her, and the cobbler, became Don Quixote, who I think he kind of knew he wasn't really, but liked the part so much that he kept it going.
Perhaps. Now, onto a structural issue. The line between the flashbacks and eventually the dream sequences and the main story were kind of messy. I mean, at points it was intentionally done that way to kind of throw you off guard as to what was real, but it did get a little confusing.
Right. I think what he did with the black and white for the original was pretty good to at least reduce that down, but I think that's kind of what you go into a Gilliam movie expecting, that you're going to have shit going in all directions.
Yeah, but he's usually better at it. Yeah, I like Gilliam. I love the surrealism he usually throws at things, but it just seemed kind of like he had to crowbar in some weirdness because he's Gilliam. He couldn't just tell a straightforward story because that's not what people want from him.
Well, I think the chaos here is largely a part of the story, and just how he Toby is this chaos agent, whether he knows it or not, whether he intends to be or not even.
Yeah.
It's just like the theme is expressed earlier, that the filmmaker needs to be cruel, and really Toby doesn't have that real cruelty to him, honestly. It's just it's more of just an obliviousness.
Yeah, he doesn't intend to destroy everything he touches. It just happens. It's more of it's more a matter of ineptitude.
Right. And I guess that's why I identify so much with it.
I will say, speaking of effects, because you said there weren't many, the fire that gets started in the village, that really just seemed like a deliberate attempt at an effect, or like a deliberate excuse for an effect. I mean, they just wanted to do something big and, flashy.
Well, it's that whole thing about this thing. Well, oh, it's just this little thing, and then all of a sudden it turns into this giant. I think that's just part of the humor of it. This little, I'd say this is one of the most Python-esque movies he's done
Interesting.
in a very long time, where he embraced his Python past here, and definitely you could see something like that fire being in a Monty Python skit where it's just this little tiny thing, and then all of a sudden everything just blows up.
There was one gag I really liked when Toby reunites with Raoul, the guy who ran the bar, Angelica's father. They're talking in their subtitles, and he says, "We don't need these," and he actually wipes away the subtitles. That was a nice gag.
Yeah.
Also, the stunt when Javier, the old man, attacks the windmill and gets thrown, that was nicely done. But even though Toby is continually getting beaten up throughout this film, that should have been satisfying, but it wasn't. I just kind of felt like I wish he hadn't done any of it. I felt so bad for how he had destroyed these people's lives, but seeing him just getting beaten down for it, it wasn't satisfying.
No, it's kind of, all right. I mean, he meant well. Nobody had to go in that direction. And even in the end, where the, I guess the billionaire doesn't really get to come up into the end, does he?
No.
It's just like we'll just go on.
And you could argue, Seinfeld was all about nobody gets a come up, nobody learns, nobody gets their come up.
Yeah.
But that worked. This doesn't, for some reason, for me anyway. Also, and this was a dream sequence, so I can't necessarily blame this on Toby. When he sees an Arabic newspaper and just immediately assumes terrorists.
Yeah.
When he's at the enclave, he has that dream about the Inquisition. He sees an Arabic newspaper. I don't even know if he was necessarily dreaming when he saw the newspaper, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And he just automatically assumes terrorists. And
it's kind of like a clinching kind of moment, because it's like, oh, has Gilliam really gone off? Is he going to really go there? And of course,
if Gilliam had gone there, I would have tapped out.
Yeah, I was kind of like, oh man, I hope he has, because I mean, Gilliam's a bit of a loon.
But the fact that Toby went there just was another reason not to like him.
Yeah, and then of course, it turned out, the ultimate Python reference, the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah. Fair.
I wish they'd actually been dressed in the same way from the show.
Although that whole sequence kind of didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, it was a dream. So
no,
that's fair.
Of course not. I mean, I think the casks looked like pigs. I think one of them had buttholes for their mouth. I mean, it was just
dream sequence. Okay, yeah.
So fucking out there.
Disregard the criticism of it not making sense. Also, Javier, as Don Juan, or Don Quixote, was talking up knight errants and talking, he's a knight errant. Weren't errants like fledgling knights who were like still being, trained?
I think so.
So it's not really a thing to be proud of. You can be proud of it, but it's not like the way he was talking it up, like, they're top of the line. Also, when he meets up with Angelica again, I'm not going to try the Spanish pronunciation because I will butcher it.
Yeah.
And Javier finds them. There's an Eddie Cantor reference.
Yeah.
In 2018. This is why I don't think he changed it from 89. Because the only reason I know who Eddie Cantor. We've talked over each other.
Eddie Cantor, I mean, I guess that's an ancient reference more than anything
I only know his name because of like the ancient, comedians who we saw on TV all the time in the 70s when we were growing up. They would reference him.
Yeah.
But he passed in the 60s. He was born in the late 1800s. It doesn't really make sense to keep that reference in a 2018 film.
I mean, I don't know how much sense it would have made even in the 90s or
Maybe.
80s.
Yeah, probably. Good point. Good point.
That's a dated
Yeah.
reference.
Also, were we supposed to be laughing at Javier?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because there were times when it seemed like he was supposed to be funny. And I mean, no, I can't criticize the acting. I personally don't care for Adam Driver as an actor. He's good, but there's just something about him that irritates me. But I can't criticize the acting. Everybody across the board pretty much nailed their roles, especially Price. But there were scenes where it seemed like he was supposed to be the butt of the joke.
And I think there's times where you could laugh. There was times where you could, there was empathy towards him.
Mm-hmm.
I think it depended on, how much in on the joke he was.
Right. Which is debatable when we get to the end.
Well, yeah, definitely at the end he was not in on it.
Well, no, maybe not the very, very end, but when they were in the castle, there were a few lines that kind of suggested he really did know he wasn't Don Quixote.
Yeah.
So how in on it he was is questionable. Also, they kind of leaned a little into the very ableist trope that mentally ill people have this wisdom that other people don't. Javier, because he was delusional, had a wisdom about him that quote unquote sane people didn't have. I kind of got that vibe. It wasn't expressly stated, but I got the vibe, and it kind of
because the question really was he actually mentally ill, or did he just get off on playing Don Quixote?
Right. Fair point.
I think a lot of this is just about people finding what it is they want to do.
That's a very fair point, because I went in, or the whole time I was assuming he was delusional. But if he was just playing it out because he wanted to, that's a very different story. Now, at one point in the film, Toby finds this Spanish gold in the saddlebags of this dead horse. He pockets a bunch of it.
And that's the first tip. That's the first tip we get, that he's losing it.
Yeah, because later in the film, he's having an argument with Angelica, and she revealed earlier that she did work as an escort for a while.
Yeah.
And he throws some money at her and makes I won't say joke, but a disparaging remark about sex workers.
Yeah. He's trying to hurt her.
What had that gold turned into when he pulled it out?
I think they were just useless, washers,
Okay, yeah, it was little metal discs. I couldn't quite figure out what they were.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were junk. And that's interesting. I didn't clue into that as a tip that he was slipping. Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if there's somebody who actually is losing their mind, it's him.
Yeah.
And it results in the death of Javier at the end.
Right. And another terrorist joke at the party, Alexei, the rich guy's party. This time made by, I'm blanking on her name, the producer's wife that Toby tries to sleep with, or he does sleep with in the beginning. She makes a Muslim joke. Well, should we spoil what ultimately happens to Javier?
I mean, we kind of hint at it.
Yeah.
It is called The Man Who Kills Don Quixote.
Yeah, Man Who Killed Don Quixote, and then Toby accidentally kills him, as if we needed another reason to hate him.
Right.
And the ending, I do think, when he does go over the edge, he is made a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
Which, again, mocking a mental illness, because whether or not Javier really believed it or not is debatable. But Toby definitely was delusional.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's how it works. As a former psych major who's been in therapy for 6 years, I don't think you can have a slip like that quickly without severe trauma.
Well, it's that he killed somebody. I mean, for real that time. I mean, not even the direct, the stuff with the gunplay at the beginning, which were just accidents.
Right.
I mean, true, it was an accident that he killed Javier, but he really did it himself,
Maybe. Yeah, fair.
And maybe. I think it's the whole experience, too, of just what his life has done to people.
Mhm.
It's something he had never thought of before.
And you could make the case that he had been out in the sun for a long time, so maybe seeing the gold was, a hallucination because of heat.
That's right. He was looking for something to drink or some food
Hmm.
too. That's always me, 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 me. I'd read Gilliam's biography not that long ago, and on the edges of the pages, he has the words "me, me, me" written all
Oh,
around the book.
okay. Interesting. Huh.
So, yeah, there's a lot of self-loathing, which is why he's put himself as Toby, I think.
See, there's context I didn't have. That's interesting.
And of course, you could even say he, Gilliam becomes Don Quixote by just trying to get this film done.
Yeah. One of my titles, and this is going to be in the blurb, is I refer to it as this white whale.
Yes,
But yeah, it's his windmill.
right. I don't even know if he has another film after this. I don't even know if this was it or not.
I mean, he's getting up there, so
He
retirement would
is.
not be surprising.
Yeah.
On the brains, because
On
there's
the
no
brain.
point to sequels and remakes.
There's always going to be a remake of Don Quixote. We're probably due for a Man of La Mancha movie,
Well,
if
yeah,
I'm,
true. I mean,
because that hasn't been. I mean,
yeah,
Wicked just,
yeah,
is going to
exactly where
gross
I was
so
gonna go.
much.
Like it did really well, and Cats actually did really well. So La
Did
Mancha
it?
movie. A lot of
Cats
people
did
liked Cats.
well.
I knew you hated it, and I
A
loved
lot of
how
people
bad it
hated
was.
Cats.
Yeah, and I loved how bad it was. I'm not saying it's a good movie, but a lot of
Okay.
people loved Cats.
I don't know how much it made though.
It did pretty well. Yeah, to be clear, my enjoyment of Cats is very much like my enjoyment of the Resident Evil movies. I'm in no way saying they're good. You did talk me up though.
Yeah.
I was originally a two. You talked me up a brain, and it was Gilliam's actual self-loathing that did it, and the possibility that Javier might have known all along. I'm going three.
An easy 5 here for me. I mean, he's it's Gilliam, laid bare kind of, It's really a personal movie, even though it is taken from, something classical. It probably would have been better if the oligarch was played by the guy from Drunk History. I thought he looked a little bit like him and was disappointed to see that it wasn't him. He would have just done a bad Russian accent, and that would have been funny in itself. I was worried at the beginning of this that it was going to be like seeing Michael Jordan in a Wizards jersey or Joe Montana in the Chiefs jersey, but I think he nailed it. So yeah, 5.
And what have we learned?
We learned that if you got your senses, smoke them while you got them.
And I learned that maybe some ideas just aren't worth pursuing that hard.
Actually, I delved into some of my other Gilliam notes, and I have for my 12 Monkeys notes. Would it have been better if we didn't see the intro in the future? Maybe some doubts if his story is true or not. Considering it's Gilliam, just because we saw something doesn't mean it's real.
Fair point. Fair point. And I think, and as an artist myself, creative myself, I totally get the impulse to push harder and harder the more resistance you get to this thing that you love. But I think maybe that made him fall more in love with the idea than he would have if things had gone to plan, and maybe he would have tweaked it a bit more and made some change. Would have realized that some things needed to be adjusted.
Man, I think of some creative projects that I'd been in where I'd just been so focused and the other people involved were so focused that like relationships were destroyed and just I mean it's definitely something that happens frequently. I think if you get passionate about what you do,
and the more you have to push for an idea, and this has been the case with my music. Songs that are hard to record, I end up liking more than I do down the road, because I have to work harder to get them recorded. So it feels like it was worth it. And down the road, I'm like, maybe it wasn't that good. But I think if things had gone smoother, maybe he would have adjusted some things. Anyway, that's speculation. And that's it for The Man Who Killed Don Quixote. Until next time, when we'll be reviewing The Amazing Digital Circus on the TV show. By the way, from now on, we'll be recording every other week, and episodes will be going out on Monday. So, Zombie Takeout one Monday, the following Monday, or the TV show, and the following Monday, The Hearing. Just a bit of housekeeping there. Until then, of course, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life,
there you are.